For the first time since returning to Austin, Will Muschamp has spoken, and he had a lot to say about the Texas defense, and it has me ready to run through a brick wall. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, Mazda is driven by the details. Highlights make the reel, but the work behind them makes it count. Stay tuned for this week's Moving the Game Forward, the all-new Mazda CX-5. More to move every side of you. We'll talk about the three players leaving Texas basketball and what it means for Sean Miller in segment 2, and then preview the most anticipated series of the entire college baseball season between Texas and Texas A&M in segment 3. But first, let's talk Longhorn football. And right off the bat, I'm a bit under the weather. Apologies for me sounding a bit nasally. Appreciate y'all bearing with me. So yesterday, we got to hear from Texas defensive coordinator Will Muschamp for the first time officially since returning to Austin. And if you were looking for some insight into what this defense was going to be in 2026, Will Muschamp gave you plenty. Honestly, you can boil it down to just one thing. This defense is going to be built on toughness and accountability. Let's start with the tone that he set right out of the gate. Muschamp walked into the media session wearing a black t-shirt that said NT equals NP. Of course, most people had no idea what that meant, so he was asked right off the bat, hey, what's up with your shirt? And he said, no thud, no play. That's what NT equals NP means. No thud, no play. And that's not just a slogan. That's not just coach speak. That is a standard. He basically made it very clear. If you're not willing to be physical in practice, if you're not willing to step up and make contact and actually tackle, then you're not playing. That might sound simple, but in today's version of college football, that matters more than ever because offenses are built in space, quick passes, athletes in the open field. If you can't tackle, and we've seen some defenses around here that have not had the ability to tackle. Mack Brown once said there was a tackling epidemic here towards the end of his Longhorn career. If you can't tackle, you're cooked. And Muschamp knows that. He's been around the block a time or 10. So from day one, he's establishing we are going to hit, we are going to tackle, or you're not going to play, period. The other big takeaway from what Will Muschamp had to say, and kind of rapid firing through his most important quotes and my biggest takeaways from his availability, this is not a guy who's coming to Austin trying to force his system on the roster. And that's important because sometimes when you hear new coordinator, you might think new scheme, new terminology, new everything. And when you're talking about a guy who is experienced as Will Muschamp, you may be thinking the whole old dog, new tricks thing. But Muschamp basically said, that's not how I'm going to operate. Muschamp is evaluating what Texas has. He's figuring out what the players do well, and then he's building his scheme around that, putting guys in position to where they can play fast, play with confidence, and actually make plays. That's coaching. That's putting your ego to the side. That's not saying, this is my defense, you got to figure it out or else. We've had some coaches like that around here who were not willing to be adaptable to their personnel. The best coaches can adapt with what they have, and it sounds like that's what Will Muschamp is doing. And also tells you that he likes what he has on this team. Now, all the positive stuff, he also made it very clear that this defense is not there yet. They've got a long way to go, and he said that, look, we're about 5 months away from the first game. They've got plenty of time to get what they need to get figured out. There's still a learning curve. There's still development needed, and that's all across the board. But he did say, in terms of the effort, in terms of the buy-in, in terms of work ethic, that he has been impressed. And that showed up in something he said about when he first got back to Texas. He said he expected, his words, to maybe see a bit of a drop-off, maybe not the sharpest practice. Instead, he has seen competitive, organized, high-energy buy-in day in and day out. And it confirmed for him that this program under Steve Sarkisian has been built the right way. Because, look, culture is what allows a new coordinator to come in and not have to rebuild everything from scratch. And thankfully, Texas doesn't have to rebuild this defense from scratch. Let's talk scheme for a second, because Coach Boom was asked about that plenty as well. A couple of interesting nuggets there. Muschamp wants to play more tight coverage. He wants to challenge opposing receivers. He wants to make quarterbacks throw into tight windows, and that includes playing a lot more press man coverage, getting hands on receivers. A nice change of pace from Pete Kwiatkowski's defense. And honestly, the one thing I'm most excited about the change from PK to Coach Boom, way too much soft, way too much off coverage last year, and I thought at times it hurt Texas. And not just last year, I thought at times throughout PK's 5 years in Austin, some of that soft coverage was not great. Will Muschamp saying, no, we're going to be a lot more physical on the outside. But he also made it a point to mention that he's not going to live in just one look. He emphasized being multiple because, look, in today's game, if you're predictable, you're done. So you're going to see a defense every Saturday that can adjust, that can mix things up, that can play man, that can play zone, that can blitz, that can sit back, mix things up, keep offenses guessing. He also spent some time talking about a few positions on his defense in particular. He really dove into the star position, that hybrid role, part corner, part linebacker, part blitzer. And the way he described it, it's one of the toughest jobs on the field. And he's right. You've got to be able to cover in space. You've got to be able to tackle. You've got to fit the run. You've got to blitz. And a lot of times you're on an island. You got to deal with the two-way go when you are in coverage in the slot. So whoever wins that job, it is going to be very important, a big piece of this defense. Grayson Littleton, amazingly, as a true freshman, held down that role a season ago. He's been getting a lot of number one reps in that spot. So has Rutgers transfer Bo Masco. Feels like one of those two is going to end up being the starter at star. And again, very important for the defense that Will Muschamp is trying to deploy. Another key storyline, linebacker. Will Muschamp himself admitted that position group is still a little bit of a question mark. You've got a lot leaving. Anthony Hill, Leon Galafau, Trey Moore. These are your top three guys in terms of snaps from last year, all departing. 2 to the NFL, 1 via the transfer portal. So 1 returning starter, kind of, with Anthony Smith, but new system, young players stepping into roles, transfer stepping into roles. Sounds like Coach Boom likes what he's seeing, but that's clearly a position to watch moving forward. Linebackers have to communicate. They got to fit the run. They got to handle responsibilities and coverage. There's a lot there, and that is where the work in progress, I think, is happening the most based on what Will Muschamp was talking about yesterday. He did highlight one player in particular, and that's Colin Simmons. He basically told us what we already know about him. Like, he is going to be everywhere. He's going to be an edge. He's going to be a stand-up rusher. They're going to put him off the ball at times, moving him around so defenses can't just hone in on where he is. And when you have a player as talented and as skillful and as versatile as Colin Simmons is, that's exactly what you want. You don't want him static. You don't want him predictable. You want him attacking from different angles, creating problems. If they use him the right way, he could be a nightmare matchup. Let's be honest. You or me could be coordinating a defense with Colin Simmons. He's going to make plays. He is that good. But him with Will Muschamp, I'm expecting a big year for number one. So zooming out one more time, kind of a 30,000-foot view of everything we just talked about. The overall philosophy for Coach Boom hasn't changed. Stop the run, control the middle of the field, be aggressive, force offenses to do what they don't want to do. But it's going to be a lot of flexibility, a lot of disguising, and it's important. Obviously, it's important for this Texas defense to take another step for the Longhorns to get back where we want to get. And again, my favorite part of his entire session, he basically said, if you don't buy in to what we are doing, you are not going to play. This isn't about being liked. This isn't about making friends. It's about coaching, developing, and winning. That's the mentality that I love. Will Muschamp's a football hardo, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. He is all about ball. This defense is going to be physical. They're going to be fast. And, man, I'm excited to see what they do when we get to the fall. Still a work in progress for right now, but the foundation, the mindset, the expectations, those are all very clear. You think about his coaching, everything he's done as a defensive coordinator, everywhere he's been, including his time at Texas from 2008 to 2010. Combine that with the personnel that the Longhorns have on this roster, it's got a chance to be a very, very special defense in 2020. 26. So there you go. Rapid firing through what Will Muschamp had to say yesterday and kind of my big takeaways. Again, if you're looking for some inspiration, some motivation, something to get you excited about this season, go check out that entire press conference because it has me ready to run through a brick wall. Love that Coach Boom is back in the ATX. All right, we will shift gears here. They say that bad news comes in threes. Yesterday, 3 Texas basketball players announced that they were hitting the portal. We will talk about what that means for Sean Miller coming up next on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at Mazda. This is Moving the Game Forward, presented by Mazda. For those who know, the score never tells the whole story. We're going to talk about Texas baseball right now, and we're going to talk about Carson Tinney, who has been on an absolute heater. The Notre Dame transfer, about 2 home runs in the Longhorns series finale over South Carolina. He's got 4 home runs in the last 3 games. 2 for 2, a home run, a couple of walks in the Texas run rule victory over Incarnate Word on Tuesday. He has been red hot as of late, and I can't wait to see what he does this weekend in College Station. There's more to Carson Tinney and more to every Longhorn player than just the highlights, the early mornings, late night runs, constantly showing up for their squad on and off the field. The all-new Mazda CX-5 moves the same way, with more space to connect, a bold new design, and more intuitive technology so you can stay connected on the road in every position that you play. The all-new Mazda CX-5, more to move every side of you. It's Mazda. Move and be moved. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment, that's not the most convenient. Sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide, so you can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing that your taxes are being handled right. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. All right, welcome back. Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Friendly reminder about the Locked On Everydayer Club. You can get the first month of the Everydayer Club completely free when you use the promo code March. You're going to unlock ad-free episodes of Locked On Longhorns. Every episode will be completely ad-free, and also entry into our private listener group chat on Discord, where I am hanging out daily talking all things Longhorns. Click the link in the show notes for more, or go to lockedonlonghorns.supercast.com for more info and to claim your free month. Again, don't forget about the promo code March for the first month free. All right, a little Texas basketball conversation. We've got some roster movement to get into, and things are about to get very interesting for Sean Miller heading into year 2. Yesterday, the Longhorns had 3 players enter the transfer portal. Cam Heide, Simeon Wilcher, Nic Codyie. The news all dropped within the span of a couple of hours yesterday afternoon. And while none of those guys were the face of Texas basketball, they all played a role in the Longhorns' run to the Sweet 16 last month. Before I break things down individually, I'm going to say this right off the bat and then dive into this in a bit more detail in a moment. This offseason, to me, is having a similar feel to the Texas football offseason. I'll explain myself in a second, but let's talk about the guys who are leaving for a moment, starting with Cam Heide. For me, this is the one that's the most surprising, and I think this is the biggest loss as well. He was expected to be back. A lot of what I had heard behind the scenes over the last few weeks said that Texas wanted Cam Heide to return. Alas, the era of the transfer portal and NIL that we live in, nothing is ever set in stone. He's in the portal. Started 29 games for Texas this year. 45% three-point shooter. Gave you spacing at the forward position. Having a forward who could stretch the floor like that, that's big. That opens things up for your offense. And obviously he made maybe the biggest shot of the entire year, that dagger 3 against Gonzaga in the round of 32 to help seal that upset win. Look, did I want Cam Heide in the starting lineup next year? No, he had no business starting at a place like Texas. It's not his fault. It's just what can happen in year one of a new coach who doesn't have his ideal roster in place. But Heide coming off the bench, helping provide a spark for the second unit, I would have been on board with that not happening. Now going to the backcourt with Simeon Wilcher. This one is less surprising. I was told a few days ago it'd be a stunner if Wilcher returned. There's no stunner here. Jordan Pope and Tremont Mark are obviously gone. And because of that, losing Wilcher might feel like a bigger loss because you don't have a point guard on the roster right now. But the Sim Wilcher experiment just didn't work. It wasn't a great year for him. Wasn't a great fit for Texas. I wish him the best of luck. This one is not that much of a loss for the Longhorns, if we're being perfectly honest. And it's interesting because every guard who played meaningful minutes in the Sweet 16 run is no longer on the roster. So a massive, massive reset. And then there's Nic Codyie, last but not least. You know, this one I've heard is more of a mutual decision. Texas going in a different direction, Codyie exploring other opportunities. He gave you minutes. He was great down the stretch. A big part of the rotation in the NCAA tournament with Lucina Traore sidelined with an injury. You know, the stats for Codyie, not great. Averaged 4 points, 3 rebounds a game this year, but some solid contributions and ate up some valuable minutes. Another guy, like Texas does not make the second weekend of the tourney without Nic Codyie doing what he did in the month of March. Another guy that I would have been fine with coming back on the bench, but honestly, Texas can find a better backup big man. So here's where I go back to what I said a couple of minutes ago, comparing the start of this offseason to the start of this Longhorn football offseason. Texas is trimming some fat and hopefully adding some muscle. Remember, back in January when the football portal opened up, a lot of Texas fans were freaking out a little bit when guys like DeAndre Moore and Trey Wisner and Leonga Lafau and Judas Livingston hit the portal, et cetera, et cetera. Some other big names, too, who played a lot last year for Texas. And people freaked out. People pressed the panic button. Then the Longhorns went out and completely upgraded their roster. Now people aren't complaining at all about the additions and the roster turnover that Texas has. That's the hope, and I hope that's the plan for what Sean Miller is doing. I get it. It's a bit apples to oranges. Not a perfect comparison. Football had more coming back than basketball does. Of course, there are way more players on a football roster than there are on a college basketball roster, and football spends more money than basketball here at Texas. So probably more reasonable to feel better about the Longhorns putting together a championship level roster with how much they invest in football than in basketball. But I fully expect year two Sean Miller's roster to be bigger, better, and deeper than this past year. Now, there's a lot of work that has to be done to make that happen because right now you got Modest Fokatitis in the front court, John Clark, Louis Obiora, who redshirted last year, didn't play at all. So you don't really know what you have with them. Even before Heide left, you already needed a power forward and you were looking for Texas to add a backup big. They need a lot. And then flip to the backcourt. We just said it's basically a clean slate. No returning rotation guards. Pope, Mark, Weaver, Wilcher, all gone. So what does Texas need from the portal now? They need everything. They need a lead point guard. They need scoring. They need shooting. They need size. They need depth. They've got a very good recruiting class coming in, but they need a lot because this is basically rebuilding an entire unit. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing because when a new coach comes in, there's always a phase where it takes some time for the roster to start to reflect his vision, his system, his preferences, and that's going to mean turnover. That's going to mean attrition. And now you're getting new guys in who are going to fit more of what the coach is looking to do. So this is all intentional. This is all part of the plan, but it also raises the stakes because you now have more work to do in the portal because of the 3 departures that you had yesterday. And you're not trying to rebuild. You're trying to sustain success. You want a better regular season, but obviously you want a similar level of postseason success that you just had. So again, 3 portal departures, not headline grabbing individually, but together it further signals a major transition for Texas basketball and what they do over these next few weeks. And there's going to be some visits this weekend. We'll be talking about this weekend. That's all going to define year 2 of the Sean Miller era. So there you go. Would love to get y'all's thoughts on the 3 departures and where you want to see Texas attack in the portal. We've got one segment to go. Let's talk some Longhorn baseball, y'all. A weekend Aggies have had marked on their calendars for 2 years. It's finally here. Texas and Texas A&M in College Station. We will preview Coach Schloss's return to Aggieland next on Locked On Longhorns. But before we do that, a quick word for our friends at Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need to make the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the last minute that I've been talking to y'all, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who actually check all of your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Less stress, less time, more results. Is there a better combination than that? When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status that it deserves. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast. Again, Indeed.com/podcast. Support this show by telling them you heard about it right here. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. All right, final segment. Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Happy Friday to each and every one of you out there. Appreciate y'all tuning in to this episode. Look, this series doesn't need any introduction, but we're making this final segment a series preview and also a WWE style promo for the Lone Star Showdown on the Diamond, which starts tonight. This is college baseball at its absolute best. Number 2 Texas heading on the road to face number 18 Texas A&M in a full 3-game series in College Station for the first time since 1992. Let that sink in. More than 30 years since Texas has played an entire 3-game series at A&M. Obviously, the Longhorns and Aggies were in different conferences for a lot of that time, but back in the day, they used to split these rivalry series. They play Friday night in Austin and then Saturday and Sunday in College Station, or vice versa. Crazy how they did that. Why they did that, I don't know, but they did that. So it's been a while. Back in the same conference, same rivalry, and of course, a whole new layer added to it because this isn't just Texas versus A&M. This is Jim Schlossnagle going back to College Station. And that's what takes this from a big series, because it's always a big series when these teams play, to something completely different, something unlike anything we will see in college baseball this year, maybe for the next 10 years. Take you back in the DeLorean for a moment. Remember how this all went down. Schlossnagle leads A&M to the College World Series final in 2024. They lose Game 3 to Tennessee. The next day, he's the head coach at Texas. One of the best days of my life. One of the worst days of A&M's fans' lives. And now, for the first time, he's walking back into Olsen Field at Bluebell Park as the opposing coach. Hatred, vitriol, abhorrence, disdain, disgust, any harsh-sounding descriptor you could think of, about as bad as you could feel about another person. That's how A&M fans feel about Schloss. Think about the person you hate the most in this life. That might pale in comparison to how the 12th man feels about Schloss. He ripped their heart out. He's the best baseball coach they've ever had by far. Not only did he leave, but he left for the rival. And the way he left, glorious for us, not so glorious for them. The environment this weekend, especially tonight, Game 1, it's going to be insane. Hostile, loud, personal. This isn't just SEC road game noise. This isn't Texas coming to town, so they're going to bring the... This is built up frustration mixed with rivalry hate, mixed with two really good baseball teams. You're talking 8,000 plus fans living and dying with every pitch. And for Texas, it's part of the challenge. Because on paper, Texas is the better team. They've got the better record. They're higher ranked. They've got better stats, but paper doesn't play. And in an environment like this, that can change everything. So biggest keys for the Longhorns right out of the gate. How does Texas handle the moment? Can they stay composed early? Can they avoid letting the crowd dictate this game? That place is tough to play regardless. And then all the gasoline that's been poured on the fire, it's going to be insanity there. If A&M jumps out to an early lead, the place is going to explode. Texas can throw the first few punches, quiet things down a little bit, take control. Now the pressure flips, and it's on A&M. Speaking of the Aggies, let's talk about this team. This is not the same group that A&M had last year. Remember, preseason number 1, they missed the NCAA tournament entirely. People wanted Michael Early to get fired. Former Texas assistant Michael Early, by the way. This year, much more stable. 25-7. They did lose to Texas State on Tuesday, but much better record. 7-5 in SEC play. They can hit. One of the best offensive teams in the conference, averaging nearly 10 runs a game. Caden Sorrell, their best player, 16 home runs already, hitting close to 380. It's like Golden Spikes level production for this dude. He's the type of player who can swing an entire series. So for Texas, don't let him beat you. Make him uncomfortable. Attack him early, but stay away from mistakes over the plate, because if he gets going, he can carry the lineup. And it's not just him. They've got depth in that lineup. Their top 3 guys are all really good. And again, top to bottom, 1 through 9, it's solid. It's not a lineup that you can just cruise through. Good news for Texas, the biggest strength is the pitching staff. Ruger Riojas, Luke Harrison, Dylan Volantis, they need to do what they've done pretty much all year long. It's one of the best weekend rotations in the country. Experience, strikeout ability. These are guys who can take an opposing crowd out of a game. That's going to be critical. Limit free passes. Don't walk guys. Don't give A&M extra opportunities. Force them to earn everything, because if you give them life, they will make you pay. Now, when Texas is at the plate, look, A&M's weakness is their pitching. It's been inconsistent. Their starters have had some good moments, but they've also given up hits. They've given up runs. Their bullpen's a little bit banged up. And this is for Texas. If they can be disciplined, they've got a chance to do some damage. Excited. That's where Texas can make their hay this weekend. Zoom out for a second. This series is also important in the bigger picture. Yes, for Texas, you want to have your skippers back, of course. But look, Texas is 9-3 in SEC play. They are trying to win the SEC for the second straight year. You win this series, you take 2 of 3 in College Station, you're at 11-4, and you're in a very good spot, not only to win the conference, but also to earn a top 8 national seat, which is the goal. You're in a great spot. If you win this series, that'd be 5 series wins in 5 conference series. Obviously a sweep. Hey, you swept A&M last year. That was in Austin, so a lot less hectic of an environment, but a sweep would be even better. But we do not complain about series wins here on Locked On Longhorns. If you're able to find 2 out of 3, that would be huge for this Texas team achieving some of the goals that they have. That's what's at stake. But again, if we're being honest, all of that season-long stuff, it's going to take a back seat to what really is happening this weekend, or at least what it's going to feel like. Rivalry baseball, history, emotion, pressure, and a coach going back to the place he left. A&M fans feel like they got stabbed in the back, and 8,000 plus of them are ready to remind them of that. It's going to be record crowds this weekend. For Texas, start fast, stay composed, pitch to your strengths, limit mistakes. Don't let the environment beat you. Texas plays its game. They should win this series. They're the better team. If they get caught up in the moment and all the ball 5, ball 6 chants and all the bubbles blowing around and all the other weird stuff, there may be sheep, there may be goats. I don't like to pay much attention to what the Aggies do. That's a weird bunch of people there. If you get caught up in that, like I just did, I just got distracted talking about that. If you let the noise creep in, then things can get dangerous, and A&M's good enough to win this series. It's going to be great. This weekend's so good. College baseball at its absolute best. Doesn't get better than this. Buckle up and pray that weather doesn't ruin this thing, because there is some inclement weather forecasted in College Station this weekend. We got to get all 3 of these. We need 9-inning games. We need 3 9-inning games. Find a way to make it happen. Hook 'em horns. It's going to be fun. All right, that'll do it for this episode. If you made it this far, number 1, God bless you. Number 2, please remember to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, rate 5 stars, all of those great things. Can't thank y'all enough for your continued support of Locked On Longhorns. Again, apologies for the voice being a little bit under the weather. Appreciate y'all putting up with me. For your next listen, check out Locked On SEC. My man, Chris Gordy, has you covered, talking SEC baseball, SEC football, SEC basketball, and the transfer portal. All of it in one spot on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back this weekend to recap some of these baseball games, talk some basketball portal, and who knows, never a dull moment on the 40 acres. We're talking about all of it right here. But that'll do it for this one. Y'all enjoy the weekend. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, horns up, mics off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.